The chamber was quiet, but it wasn't calm. It was the kind of silence that hovered like steam before a storm, tense, charged, deliberate. The hearing room in the Rayburn building was packed wall to wall. Aides, journalists, policy wonks, and a C-SPAN crew whose camera lenses lingered just a little too long. The official topic was the future of labor and automation, but everyone knew what it really was: a collision course. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett entered without ceremony, her heels making measured contact with the tile like a slow metronome. No entourage, no exaggerated gestures, just focus. Her navy suit was sharp, her expression sharper. She walked past a row of murmuring aides, scanning the panel, then paused. At the end of the table, lounging with the ease of someone who hadn't faced a real consequence in years, was Elon Musk. He didn't rise, didn't smile. Instead, he gave a slight nod, as if acknowledging a worthy competitor. She returned it without blinking. The chairwoman opened with formalities, ticking off attendance, rules, time limits. No one was listening. Eyes darted between Crockett and Musk like they were watching a chessboard before the first move, and Jasmine, patient as ever, waited. Then she spoke. "Mr. Musk," she began, voice clear, steady, not loud, but surgical. "Last year, you told a room full of investors that AI and robotics would eliminate nearly a third of working-class jobs by 2035. You said it wasn't a prediction, it was a guarantee. My question is simple. Do you see that as progress or collateral damage?" The air cracked. Musk didn't flinch. He leaned forward slightly, fingers laced together. "Progress is often uncomfortable," he said. "You don't stop the invention of the automobile because it put blacksmiths out of work." The corners of Jasmine's mouth tightened, barely. "Sure," she said, "but the automobile didn't buy up the roads, set the speed limits, and charge a toll every 5 miles. Your companies don't just innovate, they dictate." A low ripple moved through the room. Musk raised an eyebrow. "Are you suggesting I control the economy?" "I'm suggesting," she said, "that when you automate away livelihoods and then tweet about freedom, you're not building the future. You're building a machine, and machines don't care who they replace." He opened his mouth to respond, but paused. Jasmine had leaned in now, just slightly, not for effect, but for precision. "And while you're talking efficiency," she said, "I've got constituents working 2 jobs just to afford the electricity your satellites beam down." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was heavy. It pressed on the air like weight, like warning. This wasn't just about labor. This was about power, and the opening move was Jasmine's. The hearing room hadn't moved, but something inside it had shifted. Crockett's words were still echoing, subtly but persistently, like vibrations through concrete. Musk, now fully upright in his chair, studied her the way an engineer studies a malfunction, calculating, curious, but under that, a flicker of something harder to name. "Congresswoman," he finally said, voice cool but not cold. "You're passionate, but progress isn't paused because it's inconvenient. The role of government isn't to protect obsolete jobs. It's to prepare people for what comes next." A few staffers nodded. Predictable. Clean logic. But Jasmine didn't flinch. "I agree," she replied, "that government should prepare people. But what does your version of preparation look like? Job training funded by tax credits you lobbied to reduce? Worker protections gutted in the name of flexibility?" Musk tilted his head slightly, a hint of a smile. "I create jobs." Jasmine leaned forward, not with aggression, but with control. "You create openings," she said. "There's a difference. A job that pays below rent isn't opportunity, it's obligation. And when someone's forced to move states, retrain, and take a pay cut just to survive, that's not innovation. That's displacement." She let the silence land. Then she turned to the chairwoman. "Madam Chair, may I enter into the record a report from the Urban Labor Institute detailing the net job losses in sectors most affected by automation over the last 3 fiscal years?" "Granted," came the reply. The stack of papers landed on the table with a thud. It was more than research. It was evidence, and evidence had gravity. Elon's fingers tapped once against the polished table. With respect, he said, every major disruption looks like injustice to those unwilling to adapt. You think the steam engine asked for permission? Jasmine met his gaze directly. No, she said, but it didn't have a PR team convincing the country it was doing God's work either. The room froze. That line, sharp as glass, sliced the mood open. Cameras zoomed in. Reporters typed faster. But Jasmine was already turning pages, calm, unhurried. She pulled out a highlighted excerpt. In 2024, she read aloud, over 1.2 million workers were laid off due to AI-driven restructuring, without severance, without retraining, without even a full explanation. Many of them worked in cities like mine, places that never recovered from the last progress wave. So I ask again, Mr. Musk, when does innovation stop being visionary and start being extractive? There was no answer, not immediately, because now the air in the room wasn't just tense, it was exposed. And Jasmine wasn't asking for his defense. She was laying bare the architecture of denial itself. Outside, the sun glared off the marble columns of the Capitol, but inside the hearing room, the light felt colder, filtered through politics and protocol. Jasmine sat unmoving, her fingers resting lightly on a closed folder. She knew better than to mistake Musk's pause for defeat. Power doesn't flinch. It recalculates. Congresswoman, Musk began again, his tone lower now, smoother. I've never claimed this transition would be painless, but you're asking the wrong questions. The issue isn't whether automation will happen, it's how fast we can adjust. Crockett cocked her head slightly. Fast for who? A murmur in the back, not loud, but present, real. She continued, calm but unwavering. Fast for shareholders? For data scientists in Palo Alto? Because for the people I represent, fast means foreclosure. It means your job no longer exists, printed on a letter with no return address. Musk leaned back, folding his hands. His silence wasn't surrender, it was staging. He was calculating optics, public sentiment, headlines. That's what CEOs do. But Jasmine wasn't here for headlines. She was here for impact. You know what bothers me most? She asked. It's not that billionaires automate labor. It's that they automate responsibility. You build the systems. Then, when communities collapse, you say it's the government's job to clean it up, as if democracy is just a janitor for capitalism. Musk's smile tightened. He glanced at the chairwoman. Are we here to litigate economics or play to sound bites? Jasmine didn't even blink. You built your fortune with government subsidies. Should we pull those too, or is government only useful when it boosts your quarterly earnings? A pause, longer than most rooms tolerate. In the back row, a young intern whispered, Damn. The chairwoman tapped her gavel lightly, not a reprimand, just a reminder. But the damage, if that's what it was, had already settled. I'm not anti-progress, Jasmine said, now softer, her voice dipping beneath the volume but gaining weight. But you can't have a future built on erasure. If you want to reimagine society, start by remembering who's been erased already. Musk didn't reply. He stared at her, blinking once, slowly, as if trying to find a glitch in her logic. There wasn't one. This wasn't about stopping innovation. It was about demanding humanity survive it. By the time the hearing resumed after the lunch recess, the temperature in the room had shifted. It wasn't any warmer. If anything, it was chillier. But the tension had ripened into something else. Anticipation. Aides murmured along the walls, scrolling feeds, whispering updates. The clip, Jasmine's line about democracy being a janitor for capitalism, was already trending. Elon knew it too. His replies were getting colder, sharper. As Jasmine returned to her seat, she noticed the change in him, not fear, calculation. He was preparing to reframe the story, like a coder patching vulnerabilities. He didn't wait long. Congresswoman Crockett, he began, voice measured, do you know how many jobs I've created in the last 10 years? She looked at him, unblinking. Do you know how many people I've buried? Silence. Not metaphorical. Real. I've sat with mothers whose sons were laid off from your battery plant, she said. Watched them fill out job applications next to their kids doing homework on broken Wi-Fi. I know your PowerPoint says progress, but on the ground, it looks like evictions. Musk leaned forward now, tapping a pen. Evictions are tragic, but blaming me for systemic problems is dishonest. I innovate. I move humanity forward. That's not villainy. No, Jasmine replied, voice soft but razor sharp. What's dishonest is pretending you're neutral. You build rockets while schools close in the shadows of your factories. You call it disruption. We call it displacement. She pulled a photo from her folder, creased, not for drama, but because it had been handled too many times. This is Angela Ward, she said, sliding the photo across the desk. Single mother, worked on your Fremont line until automation made her redundant. She now lives in her car with 2 kids and a part-time job at Dollar Tree. Her future was replaced by code. The room didn't move, not a breath. Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her strength wasn't volume, it was clarity. You said once, if something's important enough, you do it even if the odds aren't in your favor. I agree, she said. That's why I'm here. Odds don't scare me, but silence, that terrifies me. She let it sit, 3 beats before adding, and I won't be part of it. Musk blinked slowly. For the first time, he didn't have a response. Behind him, a staffer checked his watch, visibly nervous. Optics matter, but control? That was slipping. Jasmine folded the folder shut, not as an end, but as a signal. This wasn't a performance. It was a reckoning. Cameras clicked as Jasmine stepped out of the chamber. No entourage. Just her and a folder now sealed shut. Her heels tapped against the marble like a quiet metronome, steady, unfazed. Down the hall, Elon was already surrounded. Publicist, aide, someone from his legal team. Their voices low, clipped. He wasn't talking, he was calculating. By the time the press swarmed the corridor, both of them were gone. But the ripple had only just begun. That night, Jasmine didn't go to a green room. She went to a rec center in Southeast D.C., where a group of high school seniors had invited her weeks ago, before the hearing had even been scheduled. They didn't want policy. They wanted presence. So, one girl asked, her hair tied back with a rubber band, what's it feel like to talk to Elon Musk like that? Jasmine paused, then smiled faintly. Same as talking to a teacher who never thought you'd make it to graduation. Laughter, but the kind laced with truth. She leaned on the table. Power isn't about volume. It's about where you aim your voice. Meanwhile, across the country in Palo Alto, Elon scrolled through headlines in silence. Not the ones on major outlets. They could be managed, but the ones from unexpected places. A union organizer in Michigan posted, "She said what we've been yelling into empty parking lots for years." A public librarian in Atlanta wrote, "That wasn't just a speech. That was memory turned into momentum." For once, Musk's algorithm couldn't flatten the meaning. Jasmine had done more than answer a question. She'd reframed the room. At midnight, her phone buzzed. An unknown number from Nevada. A pause. She picked up. "You don't know me," the voice said, rough but composed. "I used to work at Giga Nevada. I was one of the techs who got let go after training the AI bots. Tonight's the first time I've felt seen since." Jasmine didn't say anything for a second. Then, "You were always visible." Some folks just chose to look away. He didn't cry, but his silence did. She hung up and looked out the hotel window. The Capitol's lights blinked in the distance. This wasn't about Elon anymore. This was about echo. And echoes, if they're deep enough, don't just bounce. They move things. The moment Jasmine's words landed, the room didn't erupt. It hollowed out. Not a gasp, not a murmur, just that dense, loaded silence you only hear when something cuts too deep to be deflected. Elon Musk sat still, the CEO of the future, momentarily stuck in the present. His eyes narrowed, but not in rage, in calculation. He hadn't expected the turn Jasmine took. Not this fast, not this sharp. A few seats away, a congressional aide's hand hovered above a laptop. too stunned to keep typing. Jasmine didn't flinch. She didn't smile. She knew better than to celebrate mid-round. This wasn't a knockout, yet. But it was a shift. The weight of her voice had tipped something, and even Musk felt it. Across the country, phones buzzed. Clips hit TikTok and X within minutes. Not the whole speech, just the part where she looked Musk dead in the eye and said, "You're not building the future, you're burying people's present under it." It was clipped, captioned, replayed. Not for likes, but because people needed to feel it again. At a coffee shop in Pittsburgh, two young engineers looked up from their screens and rewound the video. "She's not wrong," one said. "Automation's not evil, but how we apply it is." In a Detroit barbershop, an older man chuckled. Finally, someone said it to his face. But while the outside world digested the blow, inside that committee room, Musk leaned into the mic, his voice smooth, but now just slightly measured. "I respect the Congresswoman's passion," he said, "but passion doesn't code policy. Data does." Jasmine raised an eyebrow. "And who controls the data?" she asked, voice calm. "The ones making it, or the ones living under it?" Musk exhaled softly. He knew the room was no longer his, and Jasmine knew her mic was just warming up. The room might have settled, but tension had found a new rhythm. Quieter now, more precise, like a slow drum heartbeat beneath the surface. Jasmine Crockett sat upright, no longer reacting, but driving. Her voice wasn't loud, but it filled the space. "Elon," she said, not with disrespect, but with deliberate familiarity. "You talk about data. Fine. Let's talk about the numbers your factories don't post." Musk looked up, trying not to show it, but she had his attention. "You ever seen the neighborhood outside your gigafactory in Buffalo?" she asked. "People living paycheck to paycheck, rent climbing faster than their wages because a company worth billions decided to build, then forget." She didn't need notes. She was reciting from memory, from lived experience, from hours spent reading what reporters skimmed and execs dismissed. "An innovation zone doesn't mean a sacrifice zone," she said, eyes locked on him. "You can't uplift the economy by stepping on the backs of people who don't get equity shares." Someone in the gallery scribbled that line fast. Musk leaned slightly forward now. His voice dropped a register. "There's always disruption when you innovate," he said smoothly. "Some systems have to break to build better ones." Jasmine's reply was instant. "And who gets broken in the meantime?" she asked. "That woman in Nevada whose rent doubled after your plant opened? The kids in East Austin whose families got priced out so your engineers could be closer to the office?" She paused, not to breathe, but to let it sting. "You say disruption like it's a feature," she said, "but to most people it's just foreclosure in a new font." The room didn't react, but people outside did. A 22-year-old coder in San Jose reposted the clip with the caption, "Not anti-tech, just pro-human." In Baton Rouge, a high school teacher played the video during civics class. She asked, "Who gets to decide what progress looks like?" In the chamber, Musk smiled, just faintly. The kind that said, "You've landed a punch, but I'm still standing." "I invest in what moves us forward," he said. "You criticize from behind." And Jasmine just nodded. "I don't need to chase rockets to know who's being left behind," she said. "I listen to them." She wasn't angry, she was anchored. And everyone watching knew. This wasn't the end of the conversation. It was the start of a reckoning. The air was still as Jasmine stood. She didn't raise her voice, didn't gesture. The drama wasn't in volume, it was in what came next. "You talk about colonizing Mars," she said, turning toward Musk, "but we haven't even learned to take care of Jackson, Mississippi." No one spoke. "You dream of making humanity multiplanetary," she went on, "but millions of people on this planet can't drink from their taps or sleep without fear of eviction." She stepped slightly closer to the table, not confrontational, but intentional. Elon didn't move. "You say you're a problem solver. Then solve this," she said. "Solve for the families who work on your factory floors but still can't afford a car with your name on it. Solve for the cities your vision leaves behind." Outside the chamber, the live stream shattered records. In Flint, a retired auto worker stood and clapped in his living room. In Tulsa, a waitress paused mid-shift to replay Jasmine's line twice. In Oakland, a group of grad students posted a thread titled, "She Did What the Media Won't." Back in the hearing room, Jasmine reached into her folder again. "This is the name of a former Tesla subcontractor in California," she said, lifting a photo. "Worked overtime, filed a complaint about racial abuse, got laid off." She placed the image on the table. "His name is Isaiah, and his story matters." Musk exhaled through his nose, an almost imperceptible tell. She wasn't debating anymore. She was documenting. "See," Jasmine continued, "what you build isn't just cars or rockets. It's culture, it's power, and if you're not responsible with it, then your legacy won't be about exploration. It'll be about exploitation." A beat. Then another. "You want to lead? Then lead all of us. Not just the ones who fit into your algorithms." Silence again. The kind that hits deeper than applause. She turned to the chairwoman. No further questions. And she sat. Not with drama, with gravity. Some moments don't need music, or headlines, or hashtags. They just need a voice brave enough to tell the truth, even when the room gets quiet. Jasmine Crockett didn't raise her voice to go viral. She raised it to remind us that leadership isn't about ego. It's about empathy. And when power is challenged by presence, not anger, not arrogance, but presence, that's when real change begins. If this story made you think, if it reminded you of someone you know, or maybe of yourself, then don't scroll past it, share it, talk about it, and remember, the mic isn't just for the loudest voice. It's for the one that speaks when it matters most. This is Curiosity Stories, and we're just getting started. Subscribe. Stay curious. Stay human. Stay